So hi, my name is Srikanth Krishnamon. I'm from the product management team at Arrcus. I'm going to give you a brief overview of automation and our philosophy for automation. So we looked at, we are talking about beyond orchestration. Why? Because you just looked at the fabric, right, and the varied devices and the different form factors that you have to manage in a network, and doing that at scale. um, as far as we have seen and working with customers, there is no industry standard like an orchestration tool. Even after 10-15 years of SDN, you don't have a single tool which almost everybody agrees to and uses it. So our philosophy is to enable customers build whatever their workflow might be, automate them, and achieve these three things at least. One is rapid service delivery right from the factory to the moment they turn on the device and boot up the base config, as well as to reduce their operations cost and proactively look at what is happening in the network. So I'm going to show you examples of how our customers have done these three things.
So before you do that, just really quick, this is Chris. I don't want to get into a semantics argument, but I am interested in the way that's phrased. This idea that what I would consider, and not to call it basic, but that these kind of low-hanging fruit, kind of achievable wins with automation, which I agree should be done, and you shouldn't have to worry about the whole thing. But I still think that orchestration is on the other side of automation. To me, I look at orchestration as the automation of automation, right? So looking at the entire system.
Yep.
So I'm just confused about the beyond automation.
No,
going back to automation.
I think that's a fair point. We're not talking about replacing orchestration. I think what we're talking about is sort of our approach is automation first.
Yeah.
For a lot of our operators, the customers who are operators looking to get the complexity out of the system and relegate a lot of things to automation.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
And they'll have their own orchestration platforms typically that we want to integrate and play nice with.
Exactly.
Thanks.
No, we are not saying don't do orchestration. It's just we are enabling orchestration through all these tools. So our philosophy has always been open vendor neutral approach, right? So whatever we designed and built in from the ground up has always been open standards based. For example, all our modeling is based on open config Yang modeling, and we provide a whole set of APIs, programmatic APIs to basically enable this, manage the devices, as well as integrate with any third-party controllers. To your point, we have customers integrating to their choice of orchestration controllers. I mean, in a multi-vendor environment, they take our devices, other devices. They are not tied to one system as such. I mean, every vendor has their own, every operator has their own tool. So we are not saying use our tool, but we enable them. So that's our philosophy and approach. And we have done that successfully at multiple large customers. We have given them Ansible and Puppet based playbooks, and as well as basically taken care of all their day 0 to day 2 automation and workflows. So if you look at map this to the architecture that Keyur talked about, essentially I'm just talking about the top layer here, this layer here. So that layer basically provides all the APIs to integrate to any northbound system. It could be third-party controllers. So we have customers using Cisco NSO and integrating a multi-vendor a network, unified that, including Arrcus devices into their network. So that's one example. For the multi-cloud case, we have Terraform, and we have other data center networks using Ansible playbooks to fully automate and provision their network. As well as we have, different interfaces, netconf, restconf, to talk between the devices and the controllers. And then we have a good set of GNMI capabilities for streaming telemetry. And finally, one example of an automated workflow, right? We use industry standard ONI and zero-touch provisioning. So right from the factory, when you ship the devices, we have this automated workflow at multiple customers where we pick up the OS through the ONI discovery, install it, come up with the base config, and use their choice of provisioning tool to boot up with the service config. So this in effect is how we enable and automate networks. So any questions before I hand off to the demo?
Just a real quick one. So do you have, this all makes sense and is great. One of the questions I always try to run into around this is there's some sort of initial inventory that has to get ingested.
Right.
Do you all have something that makes that easier on the customer? Because normally that, stuff arrives at a data center, I got to unpack it, I got to figure it out. And plus, if I understand what you're saying correctly, this is the OS running on top of a switch or device that I bought from somewhere else. So in my mind, I'm trying to stitch together how I'm building an inventory out of this to know that, hey, I've got this operating system, right? That's whatever demarker you have for it running on this device to bring the fabric up. Does my question make sense?
Yep. So, I mean, that's similar to the call home method that is typically used, right? So yes, we use open switches, ODM switches built by ODMs, and our software runs on these multiple ODM switches. So Sanjay showed some examples, right? UFI Space, Edge Core, and Quanta, and so on. So each switch has, of course, a serial number comes out of the factory. So as part of this process, when you boot up, you could read the serial number and key it into your other system. I mean, you could have a service flow system, and we have APIs to offload that into the system. And you could have a base golden config of the operating system, which can be installed across the network.